Hello, everyone, and welcome to Late Night Book Chat.
I'm D Meredith, and I'm a fantasy author. This is my wife, Patricia Meredith.
And I'm a mystery author. And tonight we are joined by our special guest, Rob Sanders, who is a fantasy author.
Yes, and you are over the pond.
Yes.
All the way in Wales, actually. Obviously, in the United Kingdom, but I live in Cardiff.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
So we're going to talk a lot about that today.
Yes. We're big fans
of Wales.
So tell us a little bit about who you are, Rob, and what you write.
So, I'm a independent fantasy author from the UK. I've always written, like from when I was a teenager, younger, I started writing. I watched Star Wars and basically rewrote it as my own book. It's quite similar to what George Lucas did with Dune. So it's probably a reasonable approach to fiction. And then when I was probably in my 20s, I started getting ideas for this series I wanted to write. And I wrote half a book and life got in the way and I got distracted and put it to one side. And it was a few years ago, COVID. I had COVID. I was isolating up in our attic. We've got an attic bedroom and I was stuck up there, marooned. And I sort of started poking around on my laptop and, I was writing that stuff. And I started reading it and I didn't hate it. I thought, well, if I'm going to write this book, when am I going to do it? Now or never? So I didn't immediately write it, and I'll come on to that later probably. Yeah. I set myself my sights a bit lower. I wrote a novella first, which is a retelling of a typical tropey story, but with my own characters and my own setting. I thought it would be a good practice, a way to go, can I do something beginning to end, show character, show plot? And I thought it was okay. And then I wrote another novel, which is Path of Blades, which you've got on the screen behind you. And that's when I felt I was ready to crack into my main project. So that's the novella, Tann's Last Stand.
Yeah.
Awesome. The little one, quick reader. That's Path of Blades. And then this year,
new one.
A month ago, I released the book I wanted to write. Yes. The book I already had an ambition to write, which is Demons Tear, which is the first book in the series. So, exciting to finally finish it, finally get it out there. I can't quite believe it. It's actually done and out in the world now. But there you go.
Awesome.
That's awesome. That means so. I'm wondering. You have to wonder how many authors the story is. COVID happened, and so I wrote.
Yes. So I took the plunge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I certainly think it certainly helped. I mean, they say Ryan Cale was one of those guys who, when people were bored at home and were picking up lots more books and were looking at different things to read, he benefited from that immensely. He was in the right place at the right time. Right. Pushed hard. His writing's really good. His story's really imaginative, and it really captured something then. And we're all still running on his coattails a little bit.
Yeah.
I think you're probably right. It did. People marooned in the house. Like, well, I'll get my typewriter out.
Exactly. Because that's what it's all about. Is finding time, right? Yeah. We're making time.
Yes. There's never enough time.
There's never enough time.
There's never enough time.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on getting the first in your series out. That's so exciting.
It's really good. Although now all of a sudden the pressure's on is that I can't just leave it now. Like after the novels, I could have gone, I'm done now. But now I've got for book one.
Yep.
Right.
It's got a big one.
That's right.
On the spine.
And smart on you putting that one on the side. There's too few authors that do that.
Yeah. So how many do you plan on?
I haven't decided, but I've definitely got an arc for the whole series. It's not like one of these things that I'm making up as I go along and there's no distinct ending. There definitely is. There's a definite set of stages I've got to go through, and a definite ending.
Right. It's like the rule for the Spanish Inquisition. There's always one more, right?
Yeah. Well, we could find that end point, which I've already got, gets further and further away from where we are.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff to happen in between, and a lot of it is fluid. And I don't know. I might get drawn into something. I want to expand on it. I think 5 to 6 books is probably about there. I'd like 5 because 5 is a sacred number in the world. I don't know if you read Path of Blades, but I think it might need 6. So we'll see.
Cool.
That's a good goal, though, to head for 5 because it's part of the world.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
It would be perfect. Yeah. So there's just 5 gods. There's 5 main characters.
Yeah.
Part number 5 recurs again and again. But knowing me, I won't be. I should forget it finished in 5 and it'll end up being 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do like the Deathly Hallows movies. I'll have part 1 and part 2.
Right. 5 part 1 and 5 part 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get too far, though, we always start with random questions just to sweeten the pot here. Let's see. All right, here you go. How do you arrange your bookshelf?
How do I arrange? Now, because my family are in, I'm doing my interview in my office room. Is this I can almost touch the other wall like that. Downstairs, I do normally do. I've done interviews in front of my big bookcase before, and I do have it organised. It's organised by genre, and then the books are in order. So I've got the full Wheel of Time. I've got my David Gemmell books all laid out. I've got my Tolkien books all laid out. I've got my thrillers down there, my non-fiction up there. So yeah, it's quite arranged. But of course, the books overflow the bookshelf, so you end up with books here and there and everywhere.
Of course.
Right.
And a to be read pile like that beside my bed.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Fortunately and unfortunately, I love reading. I've got loads of friends now who are authors, and I love reading their books.
Yeah.
But it just means that like I'm never going to read them all.
Yes.
No, you're not.
Never.
All right. What is a book, maybe one that's on your TBR or on your shelf, that you think deserves a TV show or movie?
You can say your own.
A TV show or movie that doesn't have one.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm not going to say my own because that would be too obvious. Oh, that's a really tough one.
I think you can say your own. Yeah. Like, especially if you've thought about like how you would cast your movie.
Mm-hmm.
That might give us a little inkling of your book.
I don't know if you know, I've got a 12-year-old, and he is he's massively into anime and fantasy, and he's always about Rob, Dad, what would this character be like? What would the kind of magic be like? What would they look like? And we've talked about it. It would be ideal. I don't know if you've seen Blue Eye Samurai, the anime.
Yes.
That style would be amazing. That is how I'd like to see my books. That would look fabulous. And it's got the same sort of drama and stakes and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then who would voice your main characters?
Now that's what I know. We had this conversation the other day when my son asked me this question. Jim, come on. I was probably in the middle of something. And I think I said Liam Neeson because he's cool.
Okay.
And I think I said Batman.
Christian Bale.
Yeah, because he does that weird half English, half American accent.
Right.
He's watching the Ghibli movies, and you're like, "Where's this guy from?"
Right.
He's like that, and then he's performing like this, and you can't tell who he is. Yeah, he can definitely be someone. Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd love to do animated because I think it's the way you could do all the different effects that I would really need without any spoilers throughout the series without a massive CGI budget. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So, any producers watching? Yeah, I'm up for it. Give me a call.
You contact these people.
That's right.
Get my people.
Have my people call your people, which is your 12-year-old. Because he'll know what to do.
Yeah, I need him as my manager. Actually, I think he.
Yeah, that's great.
I thought Viggo Mortensen got the job as chairman because of his 12-year-old, right?
That's true. This is kind of the same question.
Okay.
Let me grab a different one. Okay. Do you prefer to read books in a series or as a standalone?
Ooh. Now, that is hard. Obviously, books that I know, if there's a great big series, I love it. I love working through. Yeah. So a good example of reading I read, I think it was like probably a year ago, Christmas maybe, I got the full Warlords Chronicles, Bill of Cornwall, and I gradually worked through them, and that's brilliant because I knew it had an end, and I knew the characters went through it. I get a bit more nervous if the rest of the series hasn't been written. Yeah, which could be a problem that I'm having as an author. Actually, I don't know if other people think the same, or I'll wait, see if book 2 comes out.
Right.
So yeah, I'd probably tend to pick up standalones in the first instance.
Okay.
But obviously, if something really grabs my attention and I can find out there's more of it, I'd like to dive in. Though I've just read Dune for the first time.
Okay.
Just haven't
read it or listen to it. Read it or listen to it.
Read it. Yeah. And I don't know whether to dive into the others. My wife's just read the series and she says, "Yeah, you definitely should. They're really good." I'm like, "Yeah, but I've got other things I want to read." So I'd probably go more for standalones. Although there's loads of series that I would like to read. It's just again time.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the advantage of Dune too. Is book 1 did read as a standalone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I've only read book 1,
and I need to read book 2 before the next movie comes out.
The confusing thing is that Dune isn't even the first book of the series.
Oh, really?
No, there's books before it. Which no one ever talks about. It's like book 3 or something.
Oh my goodness, really?
Interesting.
Yeah, because I've only ever read that one.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. All right. Do you have a favorite drink or snack while you are reading?
Snack while I'm reading? No, I don't often. eat or drink while I'm reading, because most of my reading I do when I'm in bed before I go to sleep.
Sure. Yeah.
As a habit. I mean, on occasion,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm treating myself, I might be able to sit in a pub, beer garden, and have a nice beer and a read. That's quite a treat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a hobbit, you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm British. It's what we're all like.
That's right.
It's like
All
that
right.
joke in the Dungeons and Dragons movies. We've seen that. They meet the Hobbit for Halfling for the first time. He goes, "Well, just been gardening and I'm writing my book."
That's right. Oh yeah, we loved that movie. It was such. I hope they make more of them.
Yes, I hope so too.
So good.
Yeah, it was spot on.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of which, you are an incredibly well-rounded individual. You are a weekend cyclist. You write your first draft by hand. You live in Wales. What is your origin story?
What's my origin story?
Yeah.
Why am I so weird? So this is first draft, just to prove it.
Wow.
So, I got through 2.5 pads this size for Demon's Tear. I think book 2 might be longer. It just works really well for me to get away from screens. Like my working day is staring at a screen. So anything I can do to get away from that is good. Also, I get really distracted, which is fine for some things. But when you're trying to first draft, you both, I'm sure, understand. You're trying to pull those ideas that you've got in your imagination and get them down. Yeah. Being pulled away to something else, the news, your email, it really breaks the flow. So I love to first draft by hand. Yeah. As to my origin story, well, I don't cope well with sitting still doing nothing. Yeah. And you can't write all the time, so I fill my days with other things. So I got into rock climbing at university. That was my first, like, wow, this is an exciting sport. I've never done this before. And then injured, and then I started playing rugby, injured, and then I started playing cricket, injured. And then cycling was one thing I found that I could do a lot of, and it didn't leave me feeling like I needed to go to hospital immediately.
As long as your chain doesn't break and you go over the handlebar and get injured.
Well,
I did that 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. I was wearing jeans, so
but
I overshifted, and I was showing the kids didn't understand what shifting was, and I was shifting, and I ended up overshifting, and it just snapped the brake, and I went slowly over it into a tangle. It was pretty great.
Here's how you do it, kids. Smash. Well, interesting you say that. I normally race each summer, and this summer I haven't, and it's been a major difference this summer. I felt a bit bereft, but I had a really nasty spill in September. I was training on our track, and it was we had a heat wave in the UK at end of August, start of September. It was boiling, like proper boiling. So it was the first session on the outdoor velodrome. It was a tarmac oval, basically. You can ride around there, no cars or anything to worry about, and do efforts. So I was just in shorts and t-shirt essentially, and got to the last sprint of the night. Got out of the saddle, giving it the full beans, and snapped my chain. So I was doing about 30 miles an hour.
Oh gosh.
I can shift on a bike and full effort. And so I was just catapulted onto the tarmac. So I don't know if you can see like scars here.
Nice.
Oh my goodness.
Ripped, so I basically landed on that side and ripped all down there, my knee. And I didn't actually hurt myself that badly. As when things go, no broken bones. It all healed up within a couple of weeks. Got a new helmet and it was all right. But it really did shake me up.
Was it close enough to the finish line? You kind of rolled into the finish line?
Unfortunately, it wasn't a race. It was just training. But it was a lot of people's first session. A lot of people's first session down at the track. They just joined the club and they're like, "Come down to the track. It's really safe." And then at the end of the night, me, like blood all down me. It's not normally like this. I'm going to go to the hospital now.
Wow. So you do road, or do you prefer like high road or flat? What's your preference when you're out biking?
I like all sorts. I like getting out. I do a bit of mountain biking. I do a bit of off road. I do lots on the road. In a race, was a club's sprinter. So in the last 400, 300 meters, I'm the fastest out of a small group. So I've won races in the past because of that. But I'm quite a big guy. A lot of my mates are snakes. They just must weigh 20 kilos less than me. So as soon as the road points up, I'll disappear.
Yeah. And because you're in Cardiff, are you doing a lot of training up in the Brecons?
Yeah, you can get that far in a day. We do a 100-mile ride every February, and that goes basically over the high point of the Brecon Beacons and down the other side and around. That's 100 miles to do the loop.
Wow.
Everything's so close there.
I know.
That's the thing. It's. I can get into the city centre in 15 minutes on my bike. I live in the suburbs, and I can get out to the countryside in about that as well. And I'll be out in like absolute sticks.
Yeah.
So Cardiff's a brilliant place to live. Last Tuesday, the Foo Fighters were in town.
Okay.
Playing at the Millennium Stadium. I didn't bother getting tickets because when the tickets came out, my son was little and he had never been to a gig.
Right.
He's grown up a lot. I'm like, I wonder. Go on Ticketmaster, and some tickets popped up. So we went, and from booking the tickets at 2:00 that day, we were at the stadium at 6:00.
Wow.
Wow.
Can't fault it as a place to live. Really, it's great.
Yeah, it is.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we went 11 years ago now.
Yeah, we went through Cardiff.
Yeah, so we stayed in Cardiff for 2 days, and then we're driving north towards our Airbnb in Brecon, and on a whim stopped at Caerphilly because it was like, oh, that looks fun. We couldn't see it you can't see it from the highway, but we're like, oh, it's a castle. Maybe we'll go ahead and stop, and it's like best castle in the world.
It's a huge castle. Yeah.
Wow, we loved it.
Yeah, it's sort of over the hills and down in a dip. And it's a strange place to put a castle, really. It's not. It doesn't overlook anything.
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Well, and what I loved was every exit had a little castle sign. Like
castle here, castle
in
here,
Wales,
castle here.
there's like a castle everywhere.
Yeah. I met a gal when I was a teen who was from Austria, and she was like, well, Austria has the most castles in the world, but they're all modern. And it's like, no. Wales has the most castles per like capita that are actual proper Norman castles, and it's like
the stone.
It's amazing.
Right?
Because I mean, the only time they ever when you go to Caerphilly, they say that it's all of them are still standing in Wales because nobody in Wales fought each other. And if it was the Welsh fighting them, and they didn't know how to take a castle down. Only the Normans did. No, the Welsh. Sorry, the Welsh can't take down a Norman castle because they're fighting against stone. But stone on stone, then the Normans would wreck each other in France and England because they just tear each other's castles down, and that's what makes Wales just so.
The highlight was Hay on Wye.
Oh yeah,
right. Hay on Wye, the used book capital of the world.
Have you been there yet?
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Love
Hay on Wye.
I love that.
Yeah. Good castle, Hay on Wye as well. The really old reinforced door. I put a picture on that on Twitter 6 months ago. I happened to be there buying a bike actually. Good bike shop in Hay on Wye. Yeah, and I put a picture of the door saying, "Where am I?"
Yeah. And that's the one. There's a bookstore right in the castle.
Yeah, bookshops everywhere in Hay.
Well, exactly everywhere. Yeah.
I go there with a big bundle of books and sneak them in.
Right.
Oh yeah.
No, I've never done that
yet.
Maybe I should.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, if we ever come over there, we just need to get all the authors we know to just show up on Hay on Wye and do a little mini con.
There you go. Yeah. Awesome. So who are some Welsh authors that you would recommend, or British authors, UK, either one?
UK authors. Well, the authors that I read, I mean, there's loads of people who write fantasy and historical fiction. So when I was growing up, my formative reads were people like David Gemmell. Obviously, he's dead now, but the way he writes heroic fantasy was something that I obviously picked up a lot of because I hadn't touched his books for ages, and I was writing, and I picked up one of his books and read it. I'm like, yes, this is me. Yeah. And Cornwell, I love the way Cornwell writes. He's a bit different, and it's not a style I try and replicate because he writes a lot of first person, which not something I do. But the way he makes history feel alive, like when you're reading about Anglo-Saxon England in the Warlord Chronicles, it does feel vibrant and real in a place that you can imagine being. It sounds like a hard place. Con Eagleton, Giles Christian. There's some really good authors writing historical fiction, and I guess it's because it's really current. Like you say, it's castles everywhere. Yeah, you can't walk down the street without being touched by history, and history that goes back 1,000 years or more. Well, Cardiff Castle is a really good example. If you go in Cardiff Castle, it's a big late medieval castle.
Yes.
And inside it is a Norman Motte and Bailey from 11th, 12th century, and also a Roman fort from probably 300 AD. So, and it's those layers of history that I think are really difficult to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think my brother tracked back that one of my ancestors was who built Cardiff Castle.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, but your book, the new one, is not so much influenced by your local history, right? It's not quite medieval fantasy, right?
Yeah, no, I would say it's medieval fantasy. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. and I've tried to be quite consistent with where you would place it in history. So in some fantasy, and I'm not going to point things at any in particular because I think it's quite easy to do, you show the good guys because they've got knights and armor, and you show the bad guys because they've got sticks and axes. And actually, when you think about it, what you've probably done is you put 500 years of history between them,
Right.
and that's why the styles look so different. So I try to avoid. It's an easy trap to fall into. Oh, well, I'll make these guys look a bit, feral. I'm like, yeah, but they're like Dark Age. They've got Dark Age tech, and you've got someone fighting them who's got like medieval tech. So I tried to be more specific about where I think the technology of the world is. So things like glass is very, very rare. It's not common. Like armor, we've got chainmail. Haven't quite developed plate. It's just in development. Books are rare. If you see a book, you're like, oh, that's interesting. Like it's still great parchment and linen and stuff is being used for writing. But yeah, I've tried to deliberately give it a little bit of a different feel historically to other fantasy, which is a bit more high, a bit more, knights in armor and broadswords, and everyone's riding everywhere because they've got good horses.
Right.
And does a lot of that come back from the fact that you studied archaeology in university?
Certainly helps. It certainly makes me think about, take a country, a civilization, a culture. Why do they do the things they do?
Right.
How do they see themselves in the world? What technology do they have access to? What is important? Where do they put their resources? Are they a rich country? Are they aspirational? It makes you think about a lot of that stuff. Something that I've tried to include is that some of the rich countries, the country that starts the story, very rich, loads of good farmland, loads of good metal resources, quite dull. Like their culture is really static. And there's a country on the other side of the world which is riven by war. They're always at war. They're at war with their neighbours. They're at war with each other. They double cross each other all the time. Really vibrant culture. There's bright colours. There's rich flavours. The music's interesting. I think that's something that's quite interesting. That often in the real world you find cultures that are under pressure become more interesting. They take flavours from different places and they celebrate life while they can. So yeah, there's more of that's going to come out in book 2 because we've moved from the boring bit of the world to the interesting bit of the world.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting read, dangerous.
That is such an interesting concept to think about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even back to Cornwall, because he has such a breadth of different eras he's written in. I wonder if that's where a lot of that focus comes from, because he writes in very contentious moments in history, whether it's Arthurian or the Viking invasion, or even with Sharp's rifles during Napoleonic.
I'm certain that period in history, the what we call the Dark Ages in Britain, was actually a really interesting time because you had the Angles and Saxons were new in Britain, and they were making a culture for themselves. They were making settlements. They were building things. They were creating art. Then you had the Vikings arriving who brought their own art. I mean, we still have loads of Viking words in our language. We still have some Viking art styles that you'll see around. They left a massive cultural impression, as they weren't just turning up and hitting us with swords. They did a bit of that. And I say us, I was probably them, I was in the northeast, I was probably on the boats with my axe.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, what is that behind you?
So this is Montante. So I will stand to show you the size of the thing. Comes up to my chin.
And how tall are you?
Just about 6 foot.
Okay.
6 foot. Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah.
So obviously it's two-handed sword. It's got the thingies there, which are quite. I think that's quite modern in the way they're doing. I think they were talking like sort of 15th, 16th century sword when they were in use. So I've taken a bit of a liberty. I've got a culture which uses great swords in my world, even though it's meant the civilization is meant to be a bit less sophisticated than that. But yeah, I just use this for messing around the garden. It's actually plastic.
Oh, really? Okay. It looks like metal.
It looks like metal. Yeah, I spray painted silver for cool. But yeah, it's plastic, so you could hit each other with it. I wouldn't like to be hit with it. The thing about a two-handed sword like this is it's heavy and it looks cumbersome, but it is not. In the hands of someone who knows what they're doing, it's very fast, very agile, and you can use it to face many people. So there's stories of experts with great swords holding breaches in walls against tens of people, and you can just stop people getting near. You're like, who's the first one who wants to die?
Right.
Because the first one who attacks you, you will die.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. And what is the upper body workout too?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is Montante or Montante is one. It's the Spanish word, I think. So, and the Portuguese guy Figueiredo was the first guy to write down the treatise of the greatsword. And if you see people demonstrating these techniques, they're unbelievably graceful. Really, like almost Tai Chi-esque, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Very cool. So, does your world use swords like that specifically?
So yeah, there's the first country that the first character moves through is a country called Banagar, which is a Nordic kind of Celtic country. They're up in the north. They have decent summers and springs, so they're very fertile, but they have really harsh winters with lots of snow. Imagine if you had Norway, but it was, instead of being surrounded by ocean, it's surrounded by mountains. So they're very isolated, but they're very rich. And this is something that they invented. And they have a standing professional army who are experts in the use of the greatsword, because they are few. There are not many of them against the sort of people they are attacked by. They're often outnumbered. They're often facing mass ranks of spearmen. And by using a greatsword, that's something that they can use to break those formations. And one guy can deal with 10.
Right, exactly.
Wow. Yeah.
So does your world have bows and arrows, or is it mostly sword fighting?
They do.
Okay.
But they are rarer and not as powerful as you sometimes see in pop culture, movies. I mean, again, that's a later medieval thing where you had ranks of people who had time to train. It's not an easy thing to do. You don't just pick up a bow and start killing people. They're useful, but a little hunting bow that lots of people might have isn't going to be much use against someone, particularly if they're in some armor.
Exactly. Yeah. So are they in chainmail or plate mail?
There's no. I haven't written anyone with plates, not plate metal. A little bit of a spoiler. There's a tribe of dwarves who will come into the story later who hunt giant turtles, and they use the shells to make rudimentary plate armor.
Cool.
That's more the style thing. I don't know if it'd be terribly effective, but it's just to show how cool they are. The chieftains get to wear this massive armor that's made out of the shells of these beasts.
Right. And you can do so much intricate work with like carving into the shell too to make
that's how
cool design.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. We're watching TMNT right now with the kids, so we're very turtle.
Yeah, it's her first time watching Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I've never seen it. It's really good. So
they were one of the shows that went through my childhood. Really, the formative years watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon.
Yeah. Me too.
You guys grew up with what?
Well, I grew up with the 87 one.
Yeah. Because this one's from.
This is the 2012, which is really good.
12,
yeah.
Sean Astin is one of them.
Sean Astin voices Raph.
Yeah.
And the original voice for Raph is doing Donnie this time. He's also the voice of Yakko in Animaniacs, and he's been doing everything forever. Rob Paulson. He does Donatello, and
but he's from the 87 one.
He was Raphael in the 87.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's good. That the 2012, which was on Nickelodeon, is very it was written for you and me who have kids.
Yeah.
So it's making a lot of referential jokes to all the versions of the cartoons and movies before that, but while also making it new for the new kids. And it's really funny. Yeah.
Sounds ideal. I'm going to try and watch that at some point.
Yeah. So you've mentioned Lord of the Rings, and now Turtles. Are there any other books from your younger years, from your childhood, that influenced your writing today?
I would say actually everything I've ever read influenced me in some way. So I'm just a bit of a sponge for things. I remember reading, I don't know if you've heard of an author called Dick King-Smith.
No.
Mm-mm.
So he's a children's author, and all of the main characters in his story are animals, and he writes stories about animals. Obviously for children, 8 to 12 kind of.
Yeah.
I remember reading them, and then that was late. I was writing stories about animals. I remember writing a book about animals when I was in year 3 at primary school.
Yeah.
But then, the first book, it's going to surprise absolutely no one. The first book that really blew my mind. I went on the French exchange, and my dad just went, "Hey, Rob, take this with you." And he gave me his copy of Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
And I read that when I was away, and I was like, like this whole world just suddenly exploded in front of me.
Yeah.
So I read Lord of the Rings probably once every couple of years now.
Okay. Yeah.
Bit of an obsessive about it, but then that opened the door to David Gemmell, I've already mentioned. I've read through all of his books. I mean, reading him again, I would say you could probably critique him quite heavily.
Sure.
I mean, it's quite formulaic.
Mm.
He essentially writes the same character over and over again, which I think is basically him. But they did at that age. They captured my imagination in a marvelous way. Yeah, and then the next one after that, when I was probably university age, I picked up The Wheel of Time because all my friends were reading it. Oh, I got to read this book, Wheel of Time. So yeah, I've read through that.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I love Lawhead. He's one of my favorite, like, historical fantasy authors. Almost.
Yeah.
You know, he puts that fantasy. Like, I love the whole Hood, that trilogy.
He retold Robin Hood in Wales.
Yeah,
and it actually takes place between basically Cardiff, and he goes to hide it at Lanthony Prior, and and so his argument for it was, if you've ever been to Nottingham, nobody can hide in those woods. You can literally see through the whole thing. Nobody hides there, and it's been deforested down to the bushes so they could hunt in there since even before Prince John. So it can't be there, but it could be in the old woods of Wales, where whole generations disappeared for generations and then would show up later as part of the community. And so he set the whole series in Wales during the Marcher Lords invasion. And it was it's a good series. Yeah,
I can imagine that works really well.
Yeah. And he actually lives out there. I think he lives up in the valley, the Wye Valley.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I don't stalk him. Apparently you do.
Well, we read it, and that's when we went to Wales. We were like, oh, wait a minute, that's that valley. Oh, that's where Marion stays. Oh, that's his castle. And it was just, it was perfect timing. Yeah.
Which, are you a fan of that, of history inspiring fantasy? I mean, obviously in your books, but do you like finding that in other books too?
Yeah. And I don't mind when otherwise historical stories take liberties, as long as they're really clear about it. They're not telling a history story. They're using their imagination.
Right.
Again, Cornwall I keep coming back to, because obviously he imagines what happened. Some of the facts, and weaves the story between them. But he'll openly go, "Well, I changed this character. This was someone different now, and this actually happened 5 years after, but I brought it here to tell the story." And lots of people do that. So I've read quite a lot of historical fiction about the Roman Empire. Like Con Eggleton wrote some really good books. Again, like, he's obviously taking liberties and using his imagination in the best way he can to tell a story. He's not trying to write history. He's trying to tell a story. And anything that does that, I'm quite keen on.
Right. Which series is your favorite Roman Empire fiction?
I think it's called Emperor.
Okay.
Emperor, The Gates of Rome, perhaps. I've got them on my shelves downstairs.
Okay.
Pick them up and read them again. But again, there's something else on the TBR.
Yeah, and was that Cornwall, or was it somebody else?
Con Eggleton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, he just did that. The Genghis Khan series has been flying around BookTube right now.
Yes, so I've read some of those as well. Yeah, fabulous, really good.
Yeah,
giving Cornwall a run for his money.
Yeah,
we got it.
There seems to be space in the market for historical.
That's
fiction.
right.
And if I thought I could find something new, I'd be quite tempted.
Right.
But I think maybe then the research would put me off, because you sort of do have to know what you're talking about, or you'll get found out.
Oh, the research is my favorite part. I love the research.
She spends so much time at archives doing research.
Yeah, you get lost down those rabbit holes.
And sometimes you'll see something. If I'm watching a history program on TV or something like archaeology, I have to watch it with a notepad, because I'm like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Look at that building. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
People used to do what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I often say is that there's nothing that you can make up as a practice or tradition or a culture that is weirder than anything that really happens in the world.
Absolutely.
The real world is so much weirder.
Yes, absolutely. Have you heard the phrase "truth is stranger than fiction"?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I found out recently, which is a good example of that I've tried to include. I couldn't make myself do it as a whole. There's this thing called second sleep. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
No. Oh,
Go
yes,
ahead.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. Where they
yeah.
wake up in the middle of the night to
Yeah.
do
So in the
stuff.
medieval period, obviously you
Yes.
didn't have electric lights. The light itself was
Yeah.
expensive. You would go to bed at dusk, but you wouldn't sleep through till dawn because in the winter that's like, could be 18 hours.
Right.
You'd get up several hours later, and that's when people would mend clothes and do their prayers and do stuff in the house with their family, and it was really common, really widespread.
Yeah.
But you say that to someone now, try and imagine doing that, and it's just something that's it's so different than what we can imagine. I thought I could write that, I could make everyone do that because it would be plausible. It would be historically plausible,
Right?
Yeah.
But it felt too weird.
Yeah.
Have you read or watched Wolf Hall?
Wolf Hall, yes.
Yeah, so they did that in that they're always always coming and getting them in the middle of the night. So I think you could pull it off. I think you can do it.
You probably,
Yeah.
I mean, because I sometimes when my brain won't settle, I'll wake up in the middle of the night at like 2:00, and ever since learning that, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna embrace this and just take an hour and just do something relaxing, and then go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Instead of fighting it, lying there going, okay, I have to wake up in 3 hours. I have to wake up in which is what we tend to do. But but ever since learning that, I was like, oh, that's if I'm at peace with it.
It does make it easier, especially if you don't have a specific thing to get up for in the morning. If you just get up like when it's light or when you're ready, you're probably used to it. That's it. I did a night shift a few weeks ago, and I was knackered for days, days and days. Just not used to it. I've actually managed to include the second sleep thing as something that dwarves do. I have dwarves in my world.
Okay.
Yeah.
And everyone else thinks they're weird. Like they'll be sleeping and they'll like hear a noise and they'll get up and it's all dwarves getting up, singing songs and doing stuff that they do. And what are they doing?
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned dwarves. So are there other races in your world?
Yeah. So there's the three classic fantasy races: elves, humans, and dwarves. Humans are humans, as you can imagine. The way I picture them, I mean, this is for everyone to imagine as they want, but the way I picture my world is a bit like the cultural diversity of the Fertile Crescent and the Mediterranean.
Okay.
So not necessarily white people, but not necessarily dark either. There's just that real mix. Like dark hair, dark skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes is not a weird combination. You get all these weird combinations of apparent ethnicities, but it's not related to ethnicity. You can't look at. There are certain trends. So people from the north tend to be a little bit paler.
Sure.
Far south tend to be a bit darker, but it's more related to your particular family hereditary.
Right. Okay.
Elves are originally from the south, from the way south, so they tend to be dark skinned. They're much taller than humans. Very often very physically adept. There's
all elves.
Yeah.
Like Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Okay.
But taller, an elf that's 6.5, 7 foot tall is not that unusual.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
But very, very slender, and elves, because they've been in the world for such a long time, have gone into various different niches. So, and some of them are very reclusive, and you barely see them. They only go out hooded. Some of them have gone a bit wild and feral and attack people. Some of them are sort of like a warrior caste that in one particular country in the world. They're not numerous, but they're generally accepted. It's not a strange thing to see an elf. There's elves that hold positions of political power. It's not unusual. There's elves who work as servants. They're mixed through the whole society. Really, there's just not very many of them. Half elves have a part to play, so human elf hybrids. And dwarves are. It's hard to make dwarves that aren't how you imagine. So they're quite isolationist. They've got their own little settlements, and they don't mix too much. Although you do get hybrid elf and human dwarves. They're just a bit rarer.
Yeah.
Have you introduced any sports for each of your cultures?
No. And someone asked me this. So one of the questions that came up on the last interview I did was, what sports would your main characters do? And the only answer I could think of was war.
Yes. Well, have you ever introduced like a bike? You could do with cycling or something.
If only. No. No. Well, I suppose on the subject of sport, one of the Balagar, the country I mentioned before.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. Shall I say this? It's a bit of a spoiler.
It's up to you. You can wait.
Rather than riding, they run.
Okay.
Okay.
and they're quite used to all of them, women, children, old people, and particularly their trained soldiers are used to covering a lot of distance by foot. It's pretty normal. So the roads are designed to be run. So if you want to send a message, you should give a young soldier a message and go, off you go. I know, off you'll go 50 miles in a day, and it's just a cultural thing that if they want to go somewhere, they walk, and if they're feeling energetic, they do a bit of running.
Okay.
So kind of a bit of an Incan message system built in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also a reason to keep the young soldiers fit and training.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, you just arrived. Great. Well, here's another message. Off you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty
And
normal.
it always helps to train at altitude, because then when you go down, your lungs are just ready to go.
That's what we've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We live at altitude here, and so when sports teams come to we're at 7,000 feet.
Yeah.
So when sports teams come here, they can't handle it because they don't have time to adapt.
Yeah. Or even the Ren Fair. We went to the Ren Fair, and they all are commenting, like Jacques the Whipper is
I
commenting
can't breathe
on
because he's
breathe.
from sea level. Yeah.
So especially the jousters, right, and the sword fighting and everything, they all train up here.
Wow.
Yeah. There's one gal here who walks up. I think it's a 2,000-foot rise, stair stepping up what used to be the old cog railroad, and they've turned it into a trail. And she does called the incline, and she does it in full armor with her friends so that they can practice uphill. And she goes all over the world and competes as a sword fighter. But she will do she doesn't always do it in full armor, but she has one friend who always does it in armor, and he's a paladin. He's huge, and he does it in full armor so that he's ready to go anywhere he goes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You should cycle in armor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think, well, after that crash, it definitely had an appeal.
Yes, true.
All right. So back to journaling. You said you watch all your history shows with journal. So you've got your notepad, and you said the Demon's Tears filled 2 notepads. Is that the full first draft, or when you write by hand, is it kind of a flow of thought through the book so you can then add more to it later? How does that process work for you?
No, so I try to write in the order that is going to be in the book, because I imagine it as the story unfolding. I know some people think of a scene and they write it down and then they'll mesh that in, but I think I'd just get confused. So I the way I describe it, and I think Ryan Cale said the same, it's a movie scene to me. The whole book is a movie, and I see the movie in my head, details and all, and figure out how that movie scene fits in the wider narrative, what we're trying to learn from that scene. And then once I've got it fixed in my head, then I can write it down. Right. So, and my first draft actually is pretty close to the final product. I'll write it in full. Obviously, some bits I go, I'll put a note in the margin, change this word. If I can see I've repeated the same word several times, which I do quite a lot.
Me too.
I'll change it. I'll add in notes. So asterisks in the margins and lots of XXXs. Think of a name for this person. But if you were to pick up my notepads and read them through, it bears probably a 70% correlation to what's in the final book.
Wow.
Okay.
And people have said to me, actually, like after I've typed it up, is this your first draft? Wow. Because I tend to write really clean.
Right.
But I do the bulk of my writing before I get to my pad, if you know what I mean. Right. So I've already thought it through, and I know what I'm trying to say. So the actually act of sitting down is pretty much just getting the words down. I'm not sitting and thinking, what happens next? Right. I'm not thinking, what's this person going to say? I know what they're going to say. I know where the scene's going to go. So it's just a case of getting it down in the right order. But then obviously the next stage then is typing it up. And I've been doing a little bit of that today. So I get my pad beside me and I tip myself away. And that's a really useful edit.
Yes.
First time edit. And I try and be honest with myself when I'm typing. I don't just type it down blindly. I read it as I'm going and go, does this make sense? Does this make sense based on what's come before? So I've the start of Demon's Tears sequel has been a bit stop-start because I wrote a scene, and as I finished writing it, I read it through again. I was like, nope, this isn't right. But it was enough in it for me to not to just line through it all and do it again, but to spend some time getting it into shape.
Yeah.
Which I think, I don't know about you, Andrew, but and Patricia, that if you know something is in your manuscripts that isn't right, it eats away until you can put it right. Yeah. Especially if you're trying to go on. Like I couldn't until I'd got it in the final form, I wasn't very happy to go on. So I was a bit slow, but I think I'm slow now.
Yeah.
So then once it's in one Word document, I'll probably put it away for a bit, don't think about it, a couple of weeks, and then I start rereading and editing.
Wow. So how long did the whole process take you to write Demon's Teeth?
So I started, this is quite a nice symmetry to it. I wrote the first word, I think, on the 1st of June, 2023.
Okay.
A book release was 1st June 2024. I know I finished writing probably start of November 23. And I remember really clearly because it was Christmas Eve, was when I typed the end.
Oh,
And then
wow.
I was down my emails for Christmas and I just sat down, typed up the last few words, put it away and did something else for Christmas. And then came back to it in the new year, able to edit.
Awesome.
Wow.
So
from handwriting to final typed the end was June to November.
Yeah, that's quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And it was less, all in, it was less than a year.
Yeah.
After I published Path of Blaze. And I started writing this before I published Path of Blaze as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you went out with friends to a cabin and you just wrote last summer.
Yeah.
That's the advantage, the massive advantage I think of writing by hand is that I can take it anywhere. Quite often I want to escape screens on my holidays. I don't want to take a laptop with me. Having my pad is just like sitting and reading a book.
Yeah.
I find it really relaxing.
Yeah. Do you write with a pen or pencil?
Yeah, I've got a nice pen.
Yeah.
Oh, I've left it. No, I've got one of those blue lammy ones. Yeah, with
blue lammy.
I get through a lot of ink, but yeah, it's really.
I bet you do. How many pages do you get out of a cartridge?
Oh, that's a good one. Not as many as I think I'd like. Probably a couple of chapters actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lammy's good.
Yeah.
That's a great starter pen. Like it's a quick jump from 0 to awesome without having to spend thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not worth it. I've got heavy-handed. If I got something expensive, I'd just break it.
Yeah.
So, well, it makes me think of the people who do the crossword in pen. It's very, write it in pen. So it's official.
Yeah.
So I feel like I heard somewhere that Neil Gaiman does that, or Gaiman, however you pronounce his name, that he writes in physical and then he types it up. I
read that recently. I didn't know.
An interview.
But I saw a quote and he described his process and it's exactly the same as me.
Yeah, that's
so he isolates himself. I think he probably writes more full time than me, so he'll do it for hours at a time. Where I tend to I'll write an hour in the morning.
Yeah.
And what I try and even do, and I'm not very good at this, is sit at my table or a desk and put my phone so I can't reach it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not even distracted by my phone, and I'm not very good at it. It's something I aspire to do rather than doing. I'm always like, just have a quick look at the headlines.
Yeah.
And then you're on there for 15 minutes. But yeah, put the distractions away.
Yep.
Just write. And he says he'll sit there with the pad in front of him. So his choice is sit there with the pad in front of him blank or write. That's it. Yeah. If he sits there for 2 hours and writes nothing, he's probably been thinking.
Right.
So it's probably productive in its own way.
Yeah. Exactly. And not on social media. Yeah.
Not on social media.
Right.
I mean, wouldn't you like not be on social media at all? It's a tremendous drain of time and energy. But that's the world we're in.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Boy, you're inspiring me. I think I have a big project I got to start, but I can't start it for like a couple of years. Maybe I need to do that one by hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could do that. Yeah. I know. I feel the same way. I'm like, ooh, maybe I'll go grab a pen and start writing.
I think if I hadn't started doing it like this, I'd find it really difficult to change. I know people's processes are the way they do it. And I think if I was in the position where I was trying to write full time, I probably would have to do it a different way for speed.
Sure.
Because it is a slower process, I think. Albeit I wrote a book in a year. I just put a lot of time into it. I think if I wanted to get a book out more quickly, I think I'd have to skip the handwriting stage. I'd probably miss it. But,
I tried to.
It works for me,
and I just can't do it.
Yeah.
I tried dictation, which is like the fastest way, and I know a couple authors that do that, and it just
they go for hikes and
they go for hikes and just dictate. Yeah, like you could do it on your bike, but it's like
I don't know if you could breathe enough to.
Oh sure.
Yeah, you think you could dictate a book while you're biking?
I sometimes wish I could.
Yeah.
Or I had some device where I could turn my train of thought into written word.
Yes.
Right.
Because anything where I am some form of exercise,
right,
is I find a really good creative state. Right. So bike is a really good example. I find it meditative. A lot of my best ideas they don't get created on my bike, but they get like processed and distilled in the way that I can ready to write them. So if I start off on a bike ride and I'm thinking about a scene, often by the time I get home, I know exactly what I'm writing now.
Right.
I went up in the mountains above Brecon on Sunday with the family. They did a short loop and I did a longer run.
Yeah.
And as I was running, I was like, this scene is just playing out in my head. By the time I got back to the car, I knew exactly what was happening. Quick, get me a notepad, get me a notepad.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
How's the weather there right now? Is it really hot? It's been like 100 degrees here. It's been so hot.
It's been like February here.
Yeah.
February.
Oh.
Wow.
It's freezing. It's been really cold. We had 1 or 2 days of warm.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't it hot? It's a traditional British thing. You complain about whatever weather is happening.
Right.
You complain about it. It's just the way it is. And then after that, it's got cold again. Until a few weeks ago, it was, I don't know in Fahrenheit, but like low teens centigrade, which is not warm. Like winter temperature. People were walking around in jumpers, and then it's really windy. It was raining this morning. I'll have a look at it now. Yeah, just iffy now. So fortunately, our next holiday is South France, so hopefully we'll get some weather.
Going to which part of France?
The southern extent of the Alps.
Okay.
Really looking forward to being there.
Eat some cheese.
Really lovely loads of cheese.
Absolutely.
I can put away a lot of cheese. But yeah, it's a big mountain area. The scenery is going to be spectacular. I'm certainly come back inspired. Unfortunately, the bit I'm writing at the moment, I write very seasonally. It's winter in my world at the moment.
Yeah.
So I want to write snow and ice and cold winds, and I'm going to be in warm.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's I love all that.
Yes.
I love hearing about processing and
it's fascinating. And everyone does it differently. Everyone has a different way of writing. I can't have anyone doing anything terrible. The people who say, "Oh, I wrote my book on my phone," they're the ones who are you joking? I struggle to write a text on my phone.
Right.
I'm so impatient. I can't imagine writing more than 50 characters in one go on a phone.
Exactly.
People do it. People write whole books. They write it in Word on their phone, and then
Yeah.
I mean, I keep Scrivener attached over on my phone so I can leave notes to myself to my app, but I can't actually sit there and write.
Yeah, notes is fine. I'm sure Mike Roberti said he's done writing on his phone.
Yeah.
Really?
I wonder if he Bluetooth's keyboard though.
Maybe. Yeah, true. If I had a keyboard,
I've had to do that where the kids were using my iPad, which is what I write on with a keyboard, and I've had to go to my phone and just decide something to type on because I was on a roll. But, yeah.
A proper keyboard, I could do it, but just on the phone. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's going pretty well. I'm back on track. I'm writing about a chapter a week at the moment. Nice. Puts me about 50,000 words into the next book, which is, fantasy sort of thing. Like if I was writing a normal genre, I'd be like, oh, I'm nearly finished the book now. But no, I'm not.
I was going to say you're about done.
Started.
No, you just got past the prologue.
Exactly. Yeah.
No.
I've just introduced a couple of characters. Like they've got to do loads of stuff yet. Maybe a third through. I don't think it'd be 200,000 words, but maybe 150 this time.
Yeah.
Maybe 160.
How long was the first one?
It was 135 until I edited it, and then it went up to 145.
Oh, nice!
I added 10,000 words when I edited.
Yeah, and then Path of Blades was about 100 or so.
No, 70.
70. Okay.
Yeah. So it's. I'll put them side by side.
Yeah.
It's quite skinny. It's actually half the word count, although I spaced it. Yeah. It's more widely spaced. As fantasy books go, it's quite a short read. I know people who've read it in a weekend. People, I try and write hooky, so when you finish a chapter, you want to read the next chapter. And some people I work really well. Like my wife, for example, she can't stand any suspense. So if I leave a hook at the end of a chapter, she'll be like, I've got to read the next chapter now.
Yeah.
And then the next chapter starts with a hook. And,
right.
Oh, God, and so if you go on holiday and spend a weekend reading it, getting really angry with me.
Yeah.
Oh, happy ending. There better be a happy ending.
Yeah. Yes.
We had an argument about that. Yeah, and she's reading Demon's Tear at the moment. So I'm interested to get a row after she finishes that.
So she doesn't read your early drafts. She only reads the finished.
Yeah, I figure it's probably best that way. Some people are happy to read stuff knowing it's going to change, but yeah, I kind of wait till it's sort of done and dusted and in a novel.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the difficulty. I like having eyes on it, but it's difficult to use. You want to show something that's just a massive Word document, because I know reading stuff on a screen is hard work.
Right.
I think it's a big ask. Obviously, I do have beta readers who help me, but I tend to send them a little bit at a time.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I think dropping a whole novel on someone in Word document form and saying, read this and comment is...
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be a bit nervous about doing it.
It can be, absolutely.
Daunting.
Yes. Yeah. Unless they're an e-reader, unless
Right.
they like reading. I don't read ebooks. Do you like ebooks?
I have a Kindle and I do use it sometimes. I prefer a physical book.
Yeah.
But for I downloaded the whole Dark Tower series from Stephen King onto my Kindle, and that was easier than
Right.
this whole pile of books.
Same with the Brandon Sanderson novel. It's too hard to hold.
Yeah.
I read Death of Speech on Kindle.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was easier on my arms as well. I'm sure that's a bit of chunky volume, isn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who are being introduced to your writing, now that you have the first book in the series, would you recommend they start with that, or that they start with the
Path of
novellas?
Blades.
Yeah. It's the reading order. If you want to read in chronological order, Path of Blades is first.
Okay.
And then Tann's Last Stand, the novella, fits in between. And then Demon's Tear is maybe, I can't remember the title, it's about 15 years after that. I think you got maybe a 10-year gap in world from between the first two, and then another 10-15-year gap for Demon's Tear. So there are recurring characters. So Tann is the eponymous hero of Tann's Last Stand. He's in Path of Blades.
Okay.
He's the main character in Tann's Last Stand, and he's in Demon's Tear. He's quite an important role in Demon's Tear, and he's going to be in the rest of the series as well. He's a guy I like. He's a good guy. But they are all written that you can pick them up cold, without reading anything else, and it will make sense. So you could pick, if you wanted to get involved with Demon's Tear. Obviously, it's the newest one. It's the shiniest one. See the shiny cover. If you read that first, you wouldn't feel like you were missing out on anything that's in the other books. And then if you could go back and read them as fresh, and you wouldn't feel you were missing anything. There are a few references in Demon's Tear where if you have already read Path of Blades and Tann's Last Stand, it might mean a bit more to you than if you hadn't. But I think really they're quite subtle, and you need quite specific knowledge. They're more for me.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's a character talking to a character about a character that's in another book.
Yeah.
That you know that it had narration. Yeah. It's quite tangled, but I enjoyed it. Yeah. So long a little bit. Yeah. Start on any of them.
Okay. Excellent.
Cool.
And then, but continuing on, you'll need to read the series in order.
Yeah. So the next book in the series, it basically starts immediately that Demon's Tear finishes.
Right. Okay.
So at the end of Demon's Tear, we leave the characters doing various things. Their arc in that story is finished.
Right.
But they're still involved in the main plot.
Exactly.
And we pick them up immediately because they immediately get drawn into something else. Obviously, I can't tell you too much because it's but all the characters that people like are still there, and they're going to carry on sort of not quite meeting. So that's one of the things Demon's Tear is that the characters aren't together, the two sets of characters, and they gradually work their way inevitably to a meeting point, which is a parallel I thought with Death of Speech. I'd planned out Demon's Tear when I read Death of Speech. I thought, someone else has gone for this. This structure clearly does work. But I thought it works. It does the readers a bit of credit. You know what you're getting into. You've got these groups of characters. Let's not pretend we don't know what's going to happen. They're going to interact in some way.
Yes.
The interest is how. So that's Demon's Tear, and then the next book, they're all involved again, and you'll have the same sort of questions as they're going to interact, and some of the story threads interact beyond their stories. So it starts immediately. If you were to pick up book 2 and try and catch up, it'll be difficult. I will have the story so far at the start. From then on, I think you'll want to read them in order.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think as soon as Patrick Leo said, "I really want a story thus far in all of my books," all of us were like, "We're doing it now."
I mean, when you put it that, why in a series? Why wouldn't you? I mean, unless you worry about that reader who goes, Shall I start with book 2 or shall I buy book 1 as well?
Right.
Oh, this one's got a story so far. I don't need book 1. I don't know.
Well,
Do you
if
sale there?
anything, yeah, if they get into it and they're like, wait, why does it say story thus far? Am I on the wrong book? You're like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
See the
Yeah.
big 2 on there?
Yeah.
So it's 2 on the side. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, too few, even trad authors aren't putting their numbers on their sides that I've seen. It's like, you got to do that. You have to put
If
that
it's
number
meant
there.
to be read in order.
Right.
Well, again, I wonder if it's conscious and it's so someone can pick up any book and go buy it.
Right.
Right. Maybe.
Yeah.
And if it says book 2 on the side, people might go, do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I would say that's a good thing. Oh, this is book 2. Great. It must be book 1 as well.
Right.
Right. It goes on.
That's the point
Book
of
1 might have reviews on the back. You can say it's great. Book 2 could be good too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm quite glad I'm not playing the trad author game. It must be really difficult.
No. Yeah. Very.
Yeah. We love indie.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are out of time. So where can we find you and your books? And all the links are below. So
All the links are below. So, yeah, so I'm quite active on Twitter/X, do a bit on Threads. I post off on Instagram. I'm not very good at it. I'm occasionally on TikTok. It's basically like this. You see people do like fancy stuff with graphics and that. No, not me. I'll be on TikTok talking about stuff. So if you like talking about stuff, come and see me on TikTok. My books are on Amazon, Path Blaze, Demon's Tier, and Tantal Stand, all available in paperback and in ebook and Kindle Unlimited if you have that. All 3 are on Kindle Unlimited, so you can read them page by page. So yeah, exclusive to Amazon. So that is the place to go.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, great.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you who are watching, yes, this of course wasn't live because what time is it there, Rob?
It is just coming up to 5 p.m.
Yes, and it is 10 a.m. here. So we decided not to catch him at what it would have been like 2 a.m. your time.
Yeah.
9 p.m. our time,
we've had you on here, Rob, and then next week we're going to have JCM Byrne on.
Yes.
And looking forward to that conversation.
Yes.
And so tune in next time.
Yep.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Oh, yep.
It was always fun. You'll have a good time with him, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Yes. So thank you for joining us, and thank you everybody who has been watching. And be sure to go pick up Rob's books and check those out because they're excellent. So yeah.
Thanks very much, both. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks everybody. Have a good night.